The marble beneath my knees had long since turned from cold to numb. I'd been scrubbing the same hallway for what felt like hours, my fingers pruned and aching from the chemical bite of cleaning solution. The Castellano estate sprawled before me like a labyrinth of wealth I'd never understand. Each room larger than the apartment I shared with my dying mother across the city. I pressed my forehead against my wrist, stealing a moment to breathe. The scent of lemon polish mixed with something darker, something that clung to these walls like a warning. Expensive cologne, cigar smoke, and beneath it all, the metallic tang of fear that seemed woven into the very foundation of this place. Isabella. Mrs. Chen's sharp voice cut through my exhaustion. The head housekeeper appeared at the end of the corridor, her small frame somehow casting a long shadow. When you finish there, Mr. Castellano needs his private study cleaned. He's attending to business downtown until 8. My stomach tightened. The private study. I'd worked here for 3 months and had never been allowed past those mahogany doors. Are you certain? My voice came out smaller than I intended. I thought only Maria. Maria called in sick. You'll have to do. Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed. And Isabella? Touch nothing but dust, understand? I nodded, watching her disappear around the corner, her footsteps swallowed by the plush carpet. My hands trembled as I gathered my supplies. Everyone who worked here knew the rules. See nothing, hear nothing, speak nothing. The Castellano family didn't hire maids. They hired ghosts. I'd become very good at being invisible. The study door opened with a whisper that felt too loud. Inside, the air was different, heavier, saturated with leather and aged wood and something else I couldn't name. Power, maybe. Or danger. The two seemed inseparable in this house. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, but I doubted many of these books had ever been opened. A massive desk dominated the center, its surface pristine, except for a crystal tumbler with amber residue clinging to its sides. I began with the windows, my cloth moving in careful circles, trying not to look at the papers scattered across the desk, trying not to see the photograph frame turned face down, trying, always trying, to remain invisible. But the afternoon sun was unforgiving, and the heat turned the room into a furnace. Sweat gathered at my temples, slid down my spine, soaked through the thin fabric of my uniform. The other maids had warned me. The air conditioning in the study had been broken for a week, and Mr. Castellano refused to have it fixed during business hours. Too many strangers in his private space. By the time I finished the windows, my uniform clung to me like a second skin. I glanced at my watch. 6:47 p.m., more than an hour before he'd return. Mrs. Chen had said I could use the service bathroom down the hall to freshen up before continuing with the lower floor. The bathroom was mercifully cool, and I stared at my reflection in the mirror, dark circles under green eyes, my black hair escaping its bun in damp tendrils, my olive skin flushed from heat and exhaustion. At 23, I looked older. Poverty aged you faster than time ever could. I peeled off my soaked uniform, letting it fall to the floor with a wet sound that made me wince. My spare was in my locker downstairs, but I'd brought an undershirt. Something clean to wear while the uniform dried. I just pulled off my bra when I heard it. A door opening. Not the bathroom door. The study door, directly across the hall. My heart stopped. Then raced, thundering so loud I was certain it could be heard through the walls. He wasn't supposed to be home until 8. Mrs. Chen had said 8. I froze, half naked, clutching my undershirt to my chest. Through the crack in the bathroom door I'd left slightly ajar, I could see movement. A figure in the study, dark suit, broad shoulders, moving with the kind of confidence that came from never having to explain yourself to anyone. Dante Castellano. I'd seen him before, of course, glimpses as he moved through the estate, always surrounded by men in black suits who spoke into earpieces and watched everyone with eyes that promised violence. But I'd never been this close, never been alone with him, never been this vulnerable. I should have closed the door, should have locked it, should have made myself even smaller, even more invisible, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, could only watch through that sliver of space as he loosened his tie and moved toward the desk. That's when his head turned, just slightly, as if sensing something out of place. His profile was sharp enough to cut. Strong jaw, straight nose, dark hair swept back from a face that would have been beautiful if it weren't so dangerous. Even from here, I could see the scar that traced from his left eyebrow to his hairline, a silver line that somehow made him more devastating. His eyes swept the hallway, dark eyes, almost black, the kind that saw everything, the kind that saw me, time fractured. I watched his gaze lock onto the bathroom, onto the door that wasn't fully closed, onto the strip of light and shadow where I stood frozen like prey before a predator. He moved. Not quickly, but with purpose, each step measured and controlled. I stumbled backward, pressing against the sink, my undershirt still clutched uselessly to my chest. The door swung open, not violently, but firmly, deliberately, and then he was there, filling the doorway, stealing all the air from the small space. Up close, Dante Castellano was even more terrifying than the rumors suggested. He stood well over 6 feet, his suit tailored so precisely it looked like armor. The scent of him hit me, sandalwood and smoke and something darker, something that made my pulse spike with an emotion I didn't want to examine too closely. His eyes traveled down my body with clinical precision, taking in my bare shoulders, the undershirt pressed against my breasts, my exposed stomach, the standard-issue Maid skirt that suddenly felt obscenely short. When his gaze returned to my face, something flickered there. Surprise, maybe, or recognition, though we'd never spoken. "You're new." His voice was smooth, dangerously calm, with just a hint of an accent that spoke of old money and older blood. I couldn't answer. My throat had closed, my tongue heavy and useless. I asked you a question, still calm, but now there was steel beneath the silk. "How long have you been working in my home?" 3 months. The words came out as a whisper. "Sir." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. 3 months, and this is the first time I've seen you. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "I work the early morning shift, Mr. Castellano. Before you wake up. I'm supposed to be invisible." Something dangerous flashed across his face. Invisible. He repeated the word like it tasted wrong. And yet here you are, in my private hallway, half-dressed, visible. "I was cleaning your study," Mrs. Chen said. My voice cracked. "My uniform was soaked from the heat. I was just changing. I thought you wouldn't be home until 8. He stepped into the bathroom, not far, just enough to close the door behind him, trapping us in this small space together. My back pressed harder against the sink, the porcelain digging into my spine. Mrs. Chen was mistaken. My meeting ended early. His eyes never left mine. "What's your name?" "Isabella. Isabella Romano. Italian." Another step closer. I could count his heartbeats now, or maybe those were mine. So loud they seemed to echo off the tile. "Your accent is American, but your features... Sicilian?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "And you live where?" "East Side. With my mother. The medical bills... She's sick." I cut myself off. He didn't need my story. Men like him didn't care about stories like mine. But he was still looking at me, really looking, as if seeing something he hadn't expected to find. As if I'd become, for just this moment, the opposite of invisible. How sick. The question caught me off guard. "Cancer. Stage 4. The treatments are expensive and our insurance doesn't..." I stopped again, shame burning my cheeks. "I'm sorry. You don't need to hear this." "No." His voice was softer now, but no less intense. "I don't need to. But I'm asking." I didn't know what to do with that, with him. Standing so close I could see the individual threads of his suit, could smell the whiskey on his breath, could feel the heat radiating from his body despite the cool tile beneath my feet. "Mr. Castellano, I apologize for the intrusion. If you'll let me get dressed. You have beautiful eyes." The words struck me like a physical blow. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "Your eyes. Green, but not like emeralds. More like sea glass. Soft." He lifted his hand, and I flinched, expecting, I don't know what I expected, but his fingers only brushed a strand of wet hair from my forehead. The touch so gentle it felt more dangerous than violence. "Your mother. Does she have anyone else to take care of her?" "No, just me. My father died when I was 16. His expression shifted, something cold and calculating settling over his features. "Romano, Italian, East Side. He said each word like he was solving a puzzle. Your father, what was his name? Antonio Romano. But we weren't involved in anything. He worked at a restaurant, just a chef. He died in a car accident. A car accident. Dante's hand dropped, and he stepped back slightly, giving me space to breathe, but his eyes remained locked on mine. And your mother never remarried? No. She said she could never love anyone else. His jaw tightened again. Loyalty. The word carried weight, layers of meaning I couldn't decipher. A rare quality in this world. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, glancing at the screen, and his entire demeanor shifted. Shoulders squaring, expression hardening into something that looked like carved granite. Get dressed, Isabella Romano. Then finish your work and go home to your mother. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at me with eyes that seemed to see through skin and bone to something deeper. And from now on, you don't clean the study. I'll have Maria reassigned. You'll work the East Wing only. Understood? It wasn't a suggestion. Yes, sir. He opened the door, 1 foot already in the hallway, but stopped again. That uniform they have you wearing, it's too thin. Tell Mrs. Chen I want you fitted for a new one tomorrow. Something more appropriate. Then he was gone. The door clicking shut behind him, leaving me standing alone in the bathroom with my heart still racing and my skin still burning where his fingers had touched my forehead. I slid down against the sink until I sat on the cold tile, my legs too weak to hold me. My hands were shaking. Not from fear, exactly, but from something else. Something that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing, too late, that the ground beneath you had already begun to crumble. Outside in the hallway I heard voices, deep, male, speaking in rapid Italian, then footsteps, heavy and numerous, moving away toward the front of the house. I dressed quickly, my fingers fumbling with buttons and zippers. My reflection in the mirror looked the same as before, but I felt different, changed, as if something had shifted in the fabric of my carefully invisible existence. When I finally emerged, the hallway was empty, but on the console table beside the bathroom door sat something that hadn't been there before. A cream-colored envelope, thick and expensive, with my name written across the front in sharp, masculine handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a check, made out to me, for an amount that would cover 6 months of my mother's treatments, and beneath it, a note in the same handwriting, for loyalty, for beautiful eyes, for being invisible when others demand to be seen, DC. I stared at the check until the numbers blurred, until I couldn't tell if the wetness on my cheeks was leftover shower water or something else entirely. What had just happened? What had I done? And why did it feel less like a gift, and more like a chain, carefully wrapping around my wrist, tightening with each breath? I didn't sleep that night. The check sat on my nightstand like a living thing, its presence filling my small bedroom with questions I couldn't answer. Through the thin walls, I could hear my mother's labored breathing, each inhale a reminder of why I couldn't afford principles or pride. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I would cash the check, pay for her treatments, and forget this ever happened. Men like Dante Castellano didn't hand out money without expecting something in return, but maybe, just maybe, this was simple guilt. Rich people did that sometimes, didn't they? Random acts of charity to ease their consciences. Even as I thought it, I knew I was lying to myself. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:45, clutching the check like it might evaporate. The teller's eyes widened when she saw the amount, then narrowed with suspicion when she saw my threadbare coat and scuffed shoes. She disappeared into a back office, emerging 10 minutes later with a manager whose smile didn't reach his eyes. Miss Romano. He gestured toward a private room. If you could just answer a few questions about this deposit. Fear wrapped around my ribs. Is something wrong? Not at all. It's simply our policy with large amounts to verify. The check is legitimate. The voice came from behind me, smooth and dark as midnight. I can assure you of that personally. I turned, and there he was. Dante Castellano, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. flanked by two men whose bulk made the bank lobby feel suddenly smaller. He moved past me toward the manager, who'd gone pale beneath his forced professional smile. "Mr. Castellano, I didn't realize we were just following standard procedure." "Of course you were." Dante's tone was pleasant, but something in it made the manager take a step back. "And now that I've verified the check's legitimacy, I'm sure Miss Romano can complete her transaction without further delay." It wasn't a question. Yes, of course. Right away, the manager practically tripped over himself, returning to his desk. Within minutes, the money was transferred, papers were signed, and I was being ushered toward the door with a kind of deference usually reserved for royalty. Dante was waiting on the sidewalk, his bodyguards positioned at strategic points. One by a black Mercedes with tinted windows, another scanning the street with eyes that missed nothing. Morning sunlight caught the scar on his temple, turning it silver against his olive skin. "You followed me." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "I had you followed," he corrected, as if the distinction mattered. "There's a difference." "Why?" "Because women who cash large checks sometimes attract the wrong kind of attention. The East Side isn't known for its safety." His eyes swept my face, clinical and thorough. "Did you sleep last night, Isabella?" The intimate use of my first name sent heat creeping up my neck. "That's none of your business, Mr. Castellano. Everything that happens to you is now my business." He said it matter-of-factly, as if declaring the sky blue. "My driver will take you to the hospital to arrange your mother's treatments. Then he'll take you home. You're not working today." "I can't miss work. Mrs. Chen works for me. I've already informed her you're taking personal time." He nodded toward the Mercedes. "Don't argue, Isabella. I dislike repeating myself." Something hot and rebellious flared in my chest. "I didn't ask for your help. I don't need you rearranging my life." His expression didn't change, but the air between us shifted, grew heavier. "No, you didn't ask. You were too proud. But I gave it anyway because pride doesn't cure cancer, and I won't have you working yourself to death in my home because you're too stubborn to accept assistance." "Why do you care?" The words burst out before I could stop them. "You didn't even know I existed until yesterday." Something flickered across his face. Too quick to name, gone before I could grasp it. "That was my mistake. One I intend to correct." He opened the car door himself, a gesture that felt more like a command than courtesy. "Get in, Isabella. Please." The please surprised me more than anything else. Men like him didn't say please. They didn't need to. I got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and danger. Dante slid in beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat of his body through the space between us. His driver pulled into traffic with the smooth confidence of someone who expected other cars to move out of the way. "Where does your mother receive treatment?" Dante asked, pulling out his phone. "St. Mary's Medical Center, but the bills are being transferred to a private facility. St. Mary's is adequate for routine care, but your mother needs specialists. The best oncologists in the city work at Mercy General's private ward." He was already typing, his fingers moving with the same controlled precision he applied to everything. "I've arranged for Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to my housekeeper, to review your mother's case this afternoon." My chest tightened. "I can't afford private treatment. The check you gave me was generous, but it won't cover. The check was for you. Your mother's treatment is separate, already arranged, already paid for." He didn't look up from his phone. "Consider it an investment." "In what?" Now he did look at me, and the intensity in those dark eyes stole my breath. "In loyalty, in beautiful eyes, in second chances I don't usually give." "I don't understand. You don't need to, not yet." His phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen before returning his attention to me. "Tell me about your father, Isabella. Antonio Romano. You said he was just a chef." The change in subject threw me. He was. He worked at Lucia's on 5th Street. It was a small family restaurant, nothing fancy. He made the best osso buco I've ever tasted. The memory ached, sweet and sharp. "Why do you want to know about him?" "Because I remember Lucia's. It burned down 17 years ago. The owner died in the fire." My blood went cold. "How do you know that?" "I know everything that happens in this city, Isabella. Especially fires that aren't accidents." His voice remained calm, but there was something underneath it, something that made my skin prickle. Your father left that restaurant 2 weeks before it burned, started working at another place across town. Do you know why he left? He said the owner was mixed up in bad business, that it wasn't safe anymore. My throat felt tight. My mother begged him to quit. He did. Then 6 months later, he died in a car accident. A car accident. Dante repeated the words slowly, tasting them. His brakes failed on a mountain road. He went over the guardrail. They said it was mechanical failure. It was mechanical failure. The police investigated. The police investigate what they're allowed to investigate. He turned to face me fully, and I suddenly understood why people feared him. There was no mercy in those eyes, only calculation. Your father didn't die in an accident, Isabella. He was killed. And the man who ordered it worked for my uncle Salvatore. The world tilted. No. You're lying. Why would anyone want to kill my father? He was nobody. Just a chef. He was a witness. He saw something at Lucia's he shouldn't have seen. A meeting that was supposed to be private. Between my uncle and a rival family. Dante's jaw tightened. When he quit so suddenly, my uncle became paranoid, thought your father might talk to the wrong people. So he eliminated the threat. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. You're saying your family murdered my father? My uncle's men murdered your father. There's a difference. There's no difference. My voice cracked, echoing in the confined space. Your family, his men, what does it matter? My father is dead because of you people. Yes, he didn't flinch from my anger, didn't try to deflect. He is. And for 17 years, you and your mother paid the price for my uncle's paranoia. That's why I'm helping you now, Isabella. Because I owe you a debt. I don't want your debt. I don't want anything from you. But even as I said it, I thought of my mother, of the treatment she desperately needed, of the private facility with specialists who might actually save her life. Take me home. Let me out of this car. No. The single word was absolute, final as a door slamming shut. You can't keep me prisoner. I'm not keeping you prisoner. I'm keeping you safe. He leaned closer, and I pressed back against the leather seat, trapped between the door and his overwhelming presence. Do you think you're the only one who knows about that check now? The bank manager, the tellers, they talk. Word spreads. And there are people in this city who would see you as leverage against me. Leverage? I'm nothing to you. You said yourself you didn't even know I existed until yesterday. That was yesterday. His hand reached up, and I froze, but he only tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture achingly gentle despite the violence humming beneath his skin. Today, you're under my protection, whether you want it or not. I don't. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and I hated how my body responded, how my pulse quickened at his touch. Tell me something, Isabella. When you look at me, what do you see? A monster. The word came out as a whisper. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Good. You should see a monster, because that's what I am. But I'm your monster now, and that means no one else gets to hurt you. No one else gets to take from you. No one else gets to make you invisible. His hand dropped, but his eyes remained locked on mine. Do you understand what I'm offering you? A cage with better bars, safety, security. Your mother's life. He leaned back, giving me space to breathe. And yes, but sometimes, Isabella, cages are the only things that keep us from being devoured by wolves. The car pulled to a stop, and I realized we'd arrived at Mercy General. The building towered above us, all glass and steel and money. Through the window, I could see my mother being wheeled toward the entrance in a wheelchair, accompanied by 2 nurses and a doctor in an expensive suit. When did you? I had her transferred this morning while you were at the bank. Dr. Chen is waiting to begin her evaluation. Dante opened the car door, stepping out before turning back to offer me his hand. Come, you should be with her. I stared at his hand, strong, scarred across the knuckles, capable of both violence and gentleness. Taking it would mean accepting everything he'd said, everything he'd done, everything he would expect in return. Not taking it would mean watching my mother die. I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and firm, and he pulled me from the car with effortless strength. The bodyguards flanked us immediately, and I felt their presence like a wall of muscle and threat, separating us from the rest of the world. Mr. Castellano, a woman in a white coat approached, her smile professional but warm. We have Mrs. Romano settled in room 412. Her preliminary scans are being uploaded now. Thank you, Dr. Chen. This is her daughter, Isabella. She's authorized to receive all medical information and make decisions regarding treatment. Dante's hand remained on the small of my back, proprietary and protective. Spare no expense, whatever she needs. Dr. Chen's eyes flickered between us, reading something in our body language that made her expression soften with understanding. Of course. Miss Romano, if you'll follow me. I moved to follow her, but Dante's hand tightened on my back, holding me in place for just a moment. He leaned down, his lips close to my ear, his breath warm against my skin. I'll be back this evening to check on you both. Don't try to leave without telling me. His voice was low, meant only for me. And Isabella? Throw away those old uniforms. You won't be needing them anymore. Then he was gone, striding back toward the Mercedes with his guards falling into formation around him. I watched the car pull away, my hand still tingling where he'd held it, my skin still burning where his breath had touched. Dr. Chen cleared her throat gently. Your mother is asking for you. I followed her inside, into the sterile brightness of the hospital, into the new life Dante Castellano had built for me with money and power, and the blood on his family's hands, my father's blood. And I'd taken his hand anyway. My mother looked smaller in the hospital bed, her frame swallowed by crisp white sheets that probably cost more than our monthly rent. But her eyes were brighter than I'd seen them in months, and when she smiled at me, some of the fear loosening its grip on my heart. Bella. She reached for my hand, her fingers thin and cold. They say I'm getting a new treatment. Clinical trials that could... Her voice broke. How did you manage this? The cost alone. Don't worry about the cost, Mama. I pulled a chair close to her bedside, wrapping both my hands around hers. Just focus on getting better. But the money is taken care of. I forced brightness into my voice, pushed down the guilt that sat like a stone in my stomach. I got a bonus at work, and they have excellent insurance benefits I didn't know about. She studied my face with the knowing eyes of a mother who'd raised me alone, who'd learned to read every shadow that crossed my features. You're lying to me. Mama. Bella, look at me. She squeezed my hand with what little strength she had. I may be dying, but I'm not blind. What did you do? The tears came before I could stop them. Hot and shameful. Nothing. I didn't do anything wrong, I swear. There's a man. The man I work for. He found out about you and he wanted to help. Her face went pale. What man? Bella, who do you work for? I couldn't tell her. Couldn't say the name Castellano and watch the fear bloom in her eyes. Watch her remember the rumors that had circulated after my father died. Whispers about his death being more than an accident. Whispers she'd always dismissed as cruel gossip. Just a wealthy family, Mama. They're generous with their staff. That's all. She didn't believe me. I could see it in the way her lips pressed together, in the way her grip tightened on my hand. But, Dr. Chen chose that moment to enter with a tablet full of test results and treatment options, and my mother's attention shifted to the possibility of survival. I listened as Dr. Chen explained the aggressive therapy they'd begin tomorrow, the combination of targeted drugs and immunotherapy that showed promising results in cases like my mother's. The words washed over me, efficacy rates, side effects, timelines, but all I could think about was Dante's hand on my back, his breath against my ear, the way he'd looked at me in the car like I was something precious he'd decided to keep. You're a monster now. Miss Romano? Dr. Chen's voice pulled me back. Do you have any questions? No. Yes. I struggled to focus. How long will she need to stay here? At least 2 weeks for the initial treatment phase. Then we'll reassess. But she'll need someone to help her at home during recovery. The side effects can be severe. I'll be here. I'll take care of her. The words came automatically, but even as I spoke them, I wondered how. Mrs. Chen had said I wasn't working today. But what about tomorrow? What about next week? You won't be needing them anymore, Dante had said about my uniforms. What did that mean? Was I fired? Was I being reassigned to some other role in his organization? Something that would bind me to him in ways I didn't want to examine? I stayed with my mother until she fell asleep, exhausted from the day's upheaval. The private room was nothing like the crowded wards at St. Mary's. It had a window overlooking the city, a private bathroom, even a small couch where family members could sleep. Everything was soft colors and quiet efficiency, designed to make you forget you were watching someone fight for their life. By the time I stepped out into the hallway, twilight had painted the sky in shades of amber and violet. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from an unknown number. "My driver is waiting for you at the main entrance." DC, I should have called a cab. Should have taken the bus. Should have done anything except walk toward that main entrance where I knew he'd be waiting, because every step felt like walking deeper into a trap I couldn't escape. But I went anyway. The Mercedes was idling at the curb, and this time when the door opened, Dante was inside. He'd loosened his tie, and his jacket was draped across the seat beside him, making him look almost human, almost. "How is she?" he asked as I slid in beside him. "Hopeful." For the first time in months, she's actually hopeful. I kept my eyes on the window as the car pulled away from the hospital. "Dr. Chen says the treatment could give her years." "Good." A pause. "You've been crying." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "She knows something's wrong. She knows I'm lying about where the money came from." "Then tell her the truth." I turned to face him, anger flaring hot in my chest. "That I'm indebted to the family that murdered my father? That I've sold myself to the nephew of the man who ordered his death? That should go over well." His jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "You haven't sold yourself, Isabella, and I'm not my uncle." "No? Then what are you?" I demanded. "What do you want from me? Because men like you don't hand out charity without expecting something in return." The car turned down a street I didn't recognize, heading away from the east side, away from my apartment. My pulse quickened. "Where are we going?" "This isn't the way to my place." "No, it isn't." Dante shifted to face me fully, and in the dim light of the car, his features looked carved from shadow and stone. "Your apartment building had a fire this afternoon. Started in the unit below yours. The fire department contained it, but your floor sustained smoke and water damage. It's not safe to stay there," the world spun. "My things, my mother's things, are being moved to a storage facility as we speak. Everything salvageable will be cleaned and secured." His hand found mine in the darkness, his fingers threading through mine with surprising gentleness. "You're staying at my estate. I have a guest house on the property, separate from the main house. Private, safe." "No." I tried to pull my hand away, but his grip tightened. "No, I'm not staying with you. I'll find a hotel or a friend's place or—" "You don't have friends, Isabella. You work 70 hours a week to pay for your mother's treatments. You don't have time for friends." His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand, the gesture at odds with his matter-of-fact words. "And hotels cost money you don't need to spend. The guest house is yours for as long as you need it. No strings, no expectations." "I don't believe you." "Smart." His smile was sharp, but true nonetheless. "I won't touch you unless you ask me to." Heat flooded my face. "I won't ask. We'll see." He said it with the confidence of a man who'd never been denied anything he truly wanted. "For now, you need rest, food, and a shower. The guest house has all of that." The car turned through massive iron gates, and I recognized the familiar tree-lined drive that led to the Castellano estate. But instead of stopping at the main house, we continued down a smaller path that wound through manicured gardens to a stone cottage that looked like something from a fairy tale, if fairy tales featured security cameras and armed guards stationed at strategic points. "This is the guest house?" I stared at the structure, which was larger than any apartment I'd ever lived in. It was my grandmother's. She liked her privacy. Dante stepped out of the car and offered me his hand again. I was learning that he always offered his hand, that he seemed to need the physical contact, the tangible connection. After she passed, I kept it for situations like this. "You have a lot of situations like this? You're the first." He led me up the stone walkway, past flower beds that even in autumn bloomed with careful cultivation. "The first person I've allowed here since she died." I didn't know what to do with that information. so I focused on the cottage instead. Inside, it was warm and inviting, decorated in shades of cream and gold with furniture that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, and through an archway I could see a kitchen stocked with more food than I'd had in my apartment in months. There are clothes in the bedroom closet. I had my assistant arrange for basics in your size. Dante moved through the space with familiar ease, turning on lamps, adjusting the thermostat. If you need anything else, there's a phone by the bed. Press 1 and it connects directly to my private line. How did you know my size? He turned to look at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. I pay attention, Isabella, to everything. The way he said it made me hyper-aware of my body, of the space between us, of the fact that we were alone in this cottage with a fire burning and night falling outside the windows. I should go check on... Your mother is fine. I have someone at the hospital who will call if anything changes. He crossed the room toward me, and I retreated until my back hit the door. You're exhausted. When did you last eat? I couldn't remember. This morning, maybe. He made a sound of disapproval low in his throat. Kitchen. Now. I'm not hungry, Isabella. My name was a warning. Don't make me repeat myself. Something about his tone, authoritative but concerned, commanding but gentle, made my defiance crumble. I followed him into the kitchen, where he proceeded to move around the space with surprising competence, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator and cabinets. You cook? I asked, unable to hide my surprise. My grandmother insisted all her grandchildren learn. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was no man at all. He set a pot on the stove, olive oil shimmering as it heated. She was right about most things. I watched him work, mesmerized despite myself. There was something intimate about watching someone cook for you, something that felt more dangerous than anything else that had happened today. His hands moved with the same controlled precision he applied to everything, chopping vegetables, seasoning meat, stirring sauce with practiced ease. This was her recipe, chicken piccata, simple but perfect when you need comfort. He plated the food with care, setting it on the small dining table before pulling out a chair for me. Eat. I sat, and when I took the first bite, tears sprang to my eyes. It tasted like home, like my father's cooking, like memories I'd tried so hard to bury. It's good, I managed. It's more than good. He sat across from me, watching me eat with an intensity that should have made me uncomfortable, but somehow didn't. It's the first thing you've actually enjoyed today, isn't it? I nodded, unable to speak around the emotion clogging my throat. Good. He leaned back in his chair, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked almost relaxed. Tell me something, Isabella. If you could do anything with your life, if money and responsibility weren't factors, what would you do? The question surprised me. I don't know. I've never really thought about it. Think about it now. I chewed slowly, considering. I always wanted to go to college. Study literature, maybe. I love books, love stories. The way they can transport you somewhere else, make you someone else, even if just for a while. I set down my fork. But that was a child's dream. Reality is different. Reality is what we make it. He stood, moving to the window where he could see the main house in the distance. Your mother's treatments will take months. During that time, you don't need to work. You need to be available to her, to help her through this. And in your spare time, he turned back to face me. Apply to schools, online programs, if you need flexibility. I'll cover the tuition. Why? The word burst out of me. Why are you doing all of this? Guilt over my father doesn't explain this level of investment. So what is it? What do you really want from me? He moved toward me with that predatory grace that made my pulse spike. Stopped close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. I want you safe. I want you fed. I want you educated and fulfilled and living the life your father would have wanted for you. His hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone, and yes, Isabella, I want you. I've wanted you since I walked into that bathroom and saw you standing there half naked and defiant and more beautiful than any woman has a right to be, but I'm a patient man. I can wait. For what? For you to stop seeing me as a monster. His smile was sad, knowing. Or at least for you to want the monster anyway. Then he was walking away, heading toward the door, leaving me sitting at the table with my heart racing and my skin burning where he'd touched me. Lock the door behind me. The security system is already active. You're safe here. He paused in the doorway, looking back at me with eyes that held too many secrets. Sleep well, Isabella. Tomorrow everything changes. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and I sat alone in the cottage that smelled like comfort food and expensive cologne, trying to understand how my life had splintered so completely in the span of 2 days, trying to understand why part of me, a part I didn't want to acknowledge, was disappointed he'd left. I woke to sunlight streaming through curtains I didn't recognize, in a bed more comfortable than any I'd ever slept in. For a moment, I forgot where I was, forgot the fire, the hospital, the cottage. Then reality crashed back, heavy and inescapable. My phone showed 3 missed calls from the hospital. My heart lurched as I dialed back, expecting the worst. Miss Romano? Dr. Chen's voice was warm. I apologize for the early calls. Your mother had an excellent night. We've begun the first treatment cycle, and her vitals are strong. She's asking for you, but there's no emergency. Come when you're ready. Relief made my hands shake. I'll be there within the hour. Actually, Mr. Castellano has arranged for a car to bring you at 10. He thought you might need the morning to settle in. A pause. He's very thoughtful, isn't he? Thoughtful. As if that word could encompass the complexity of Dante Castellano. I showered in a bathroom that featured heated floors and a rainfall showerhead, dressed in clothes that fit perfectly, jeans that weren't worn through at the knees, a sweater soft as clouds, boots that didn't pinch. Everything still had tags. Everything was exactly my style, as if someone had studied me and learned what I'd choose if money were no object. I pay attention to everything. In the kitchen, I found fresh coffee already brewed, pastries still warm from the oven, and a note in that now familiar masculine handwriting, "Eat breakfast. The car arrives at 10. DC." I should have resented the commands disguised as care, should have bristled at his presumption. Instead, I found myself smiling as I bit into a chocolate croissant that melted on my tongue. The car arrived precisely at 10, driven by the same silent man from yesterday. But this time, Dante wasn't waiting inside. Somehow, his absence felt more present than his presence had been. At the hospital, my mother looked better, color in her cheeks, strength in her grip when she hugged me. We spent the morning talking about everything except how we'd gotten here, discussing the treatment schedule and planning for her recovery, as if we'd always had the luxury of hope. But in the afternoon, when she dozed off, I found myself wandering the hospital corridors, restless with questions I couldn't answer. That's when I saw him. Dante stood at the nurse's station, speaking quietly with Dr. Chen. He wore a navy suit today, his dark hair swept back, and even from a distance I could see the deference in the staff's body language. They knew who he was, what he represented. Fear and respect braided together in equal measure. He must have sensed my presence because he turned, his eyes finding mine across the corridor with unerring accuracy. Something shifted in his expression, softened, warmed, and he excused himself from Dr. Chen, moving toward me with that controlled grace that made my pulse quicken. Isabella. My name in his voice felt like a caress. How is she today? Better. The treatment. I struggled for words. Thank you. For all of this. Don't thank me yet. The hard part is just beginning. He gestured toward a small waiting room nearby. Walk with me? It wasn't really a question, but I nodded anyway, following him into the empty space. He closed the door, and suddenly we were alone, the air between us charged with something I didn't want to name. I have something for you. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. Your new employment contract. My stomach tightened. I thought you said I didn't need to work. You don't. Not as a maid. He handed me the envelope. But you need income that doesn't come from me personally. For your pride, if nothing else. So you're being reassigned. Personal assistant to the estate manager. Light duties, flexible hours, generous salary. Enough to maintain your independence while giving you time for your mother and your studies. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The salary listed made my breath catch, more than triple what I'd been making as a maid. This is too much. It's market rate for the position. His tone left no room for argument. And it's contingent on you actually accepting it. Mrs. Chen is waiting for your decision. Why are you doing this? Making it seem legitimate when we both know... When we both know what? He stepped closer, and I backed up until I hit the wall. That I want you? That I'm using every resource at my disposal to keep you close? Yes, Isabella. That's exactly what I'm doing, but I'm doing it in a way that gives you choice, dignity, and independence. You can leave any time. Walk away. I won't stop you. You're lying. I never lie. His hand came up to rest against the wall beside my head, caging me in without touching me. Test me if you don't believe it. Walk out that door right now. I'll have my driver take you anywhere you want to go. Your mother's treatment continues regardless. The cottage remains yours. Everything I've given stays given. And if I stay? Then you stay because you choose to, not because you're trapped, but because some part of you wants to see where this goes. His voice dropped lower, intimate and dangerous, because you feel it too, don't you? This thing between us, this pull. I did feel it. Had felt it since the bathroom, maybe even before, in those brief glimpses of him moving through the estate, powerful and untouchable, and somehow lonely despite being surrounded by people. I barely know you. Then get to know me. His free hand rose to touch my face, fingers tracing my jawline with devastating gentleness. Have dinner with me tonight, not as my employee, not as someone I'm helping, just as Isabella and Dante. Two people sharing a meal. That's not who we are. We're not just two people. I forced myself to meet his eyes. You're a criminal. Your family destroys lives. My father was killed by my uncle, who I helped send to prison 3 years ago. The words hit like a slap. That's why I run this family now, why I'm rebuilding everything he corrupted. My grandmother always said the Castellano name should mean protection, not destruction. I'm trying to honor that. By dealing in whatever your family deals in. By dealing in legitimate businesses. Import-export, real estate, construction. Yes, I work in gray areas sometimes. Yes, I have connections that would make nice people uncomfortable. But I'm not my uncle, and I'm not my father. His jaw tightened. I'm trying to be better. To build something that doesn't require blood to maintain. I wanted to believe him. Wanted it so badly it scared me. Dinner, he said again, softer. Just dinner. Say yes, Isabella. Yes. The word escaped before I could stop it. Before I could remember all the reasons why getting closer to him was dangerous. His smile transformed his face, made him look younger, almost boyish. 7 o'clock. The cottage. I'll cook. You don't have to. I want to. He stepped back, giving me space to breathe. Now go back to your mother. I have business to attend to, but I'll see you tonight. He left before I could change my mind, and I stood alone in the waiting room, wondering what I'd just agreed to. The afternoon passed in a blur of medical updates and quiet conversation with my mother. By the time the car returned me to the cottage at 6, nerves had replaced any excitement I'd felt earlier. I changed 3 times before settling on a simple navy dress from the closet. Elegant, but not trying too hard. Covering enough to maintain dignity. At precisely 7, a knock sounded at the door. Dante stood on the threshold holding grocery bags, dressed in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with scars. He looked less like a Mafia boss and more like a man preparing to cook dinner for someone he cared about. Permission to enter? He asked, and there was something almost vulnerable in the question. I stepped aside, watching as he moved into the kitchen with easy familiarity. Within minutes, wonderful smells filled the cottage. Garlic, herbs, wine reducing in a pan. He moved with the same grace he brought to everything, and I found myself mesmerized by the simple domesticity of it. Where did you learn to cook like this? I asked, accepting the glass of wine he offered. My grandmother mostly. She said a man who could cook would never starve and never be lonely. Food brings people together. He stirred the sauce, adjusted the heat. What about you? Did your father teach you? Some, before he died. The memory ached less than usual. He used to let me help on weekends. Said cooking was like love. You had to put your whole heart in, or it wouldn't turn out right. He was right. And Dante plated the food, perfectly seared salmon with lemon butter sauce, roasted vegetables, risotto that looked like something from a restaurant. Come. Sit. We ate at the small table, conversation flowing easier than I'd expected. He asked about my favorite books, my childhood, my dreams before reality had crushed them down. I found myself telling him things I'd never told anyone, about feeling invisible at work, about the shame of poverty, about loving my mother while resenting the burden of her care. That doesn't make you a bad person, he said when I confessed that last part. It makes you human. Love and resentment often coexist. The question is, which one you feed? And which do you feed? I asked, emboldened by wine and candlelight and the strange intimacy of this moment. When you think about your family, your past? His expression shuddered, but he didn't look away. Both. I love what we could be. I resent what we were, and I work every day to tip the scales toward the former. Is it working? Ask me in 10 years. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. Or, better yet, stay and see for yourself. The touch sent electricity up my arm. Dante, I know. Too fast. Too much. But he didn't pull away. I'm not good at slow, Isabella. When I want something, I pursue it with everything I have. And I want you. Not just physically, though God knows I want that too. I want your mind, your laugh, your stubborn pride. I want to wake up knowing you're safe. I want to fix everything broken in your life and then stand back and watch you soar. That's not normal. We barely know each other. No, it's not normal. It's obsession, possession. All the things I probably shouldn't feel but do anyway. His thumb traced circles on my hand. I'm not a good man, Isabella. I've done things that would horrify you. But with you, I want to be better. For you, I'd try to be the man you deserve. I should have pulled away. Should have remembered my father, the violence, everything the Castellano name represented. Instead, I turned my hand over, threading my fingers through his. I don't know what I'm doing, I whispered. Neither do I. His eyes held mine, dark and intense. But I know I haven't felt this alive in years. Maybe never. He stood, pulling me up with him, and then we were standing close enough that I could feel the heat of his body, could count his heartbeats, could see the faint dusting of silver at his temples that made him look distinguished, rather than old. Tell me to leave, he said, voice rough. Tell me this is too fast, too complicated, and I'll walk out that door right now. Your job stays, your mother's treatment continues, the cottage is yours. Nothing changes except I'll keep my distance. But I didn't want distance, not tonight. Not when he was looking at me like I was something precious, something worth protecting, something worth wanting. Stay, I breathed. His control snapped. He pulled me against him, his mouth finding mine with a hunger that stole my breath. I'd been kissed before, but never like this. Never with such intensity, such possession, such complete focus. He kissed me like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning, like I was salvation and he'd been damned, like I was everything and he'd been nothing. My hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing more even as warning bells screamed in my head. This was dangerous. This was wrong. This was everything I shouldn't want. But God, I wanted it anyway. He lifted me, my legs wrapping around his waist as he carried me toward the bedroom. We fell onto the bed in a tangle of limbs and desperate hands, and for the first time since my father died, I felt something other than grief and exhaustion. I felt alive. Morning came too soon, sunlight filtering through curtains I'd forgotten to close. I woke wrapped in Dante's arms, his chest pressed against my back, his breath warm against my neck. For a moment, I let myself pretend this was normal, that we were just two people who'd fallen for each other without complications or consequences. Then reality returned, sharp and unforgiving. I'd slept with Dante Castellano, the man whose family had destroyed mine, the man who'd bought his way into my life with money and power, the man who terrified and attracted me in equal measure. Stop thinking so loudly, he murmured against my hair. I can feel your panic from here. I'm not panicking, but my voice betrayed me, thin and uncertain. He turned me to face him, and in the soft morning light, he looked almost gentle. The scar on his temple was silver against his olive skin, his dark hair mussed from sleep, his eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. We don't have to analyze this to death, Isabella. What happened between us, it was real. It was right. Everything else we can figure out as we go. What if I can't? Figure it out, I mean. I traced the line of his jaw, needing the contact despite my fear. What if this destroys me? Then I'll put you back together. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, achingly tender. Piece by piece, as many times as it takes. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, harsh and insistent. He ignored it the first time, but when it buzzed again immediately, his expression hardened. I have to take this. He pulled away, answering with a curt, "What?" I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I watched his face transform, the gentleness replaced by something cold and dangerous. When he spoke again, his voice was pure steel. When? How many? No. I'm on my way. Lock down the estate. No one in or out without my explicit approval. He ended the call and turned to me, already pulling on his clothes with efficient movements. I have to go. There's been a situation. Fear spiked through me. What kind of situation? The kind I handle so you don't have to worry about it. He leaned down, kissing me hard and fast. Stay here. Don't leave the cottage. I'll have 2 guards posted outside. Dante? Promise me, Isabella. This is important. His hands gripped my shoulders. Promise me you'll stay inside until I come back. I promise. The words felt like a chain snapping closed around my wrist. He left in a rush, and within minutes I heard voices outside. Deep, male, speaking in rapid Italian, the guards he'd mentioned, my protectors, my jailers. I dressed quickly, trying to ignore the ache in my body that reminded me of last night, of his hands and mouth, and the way he'd whispered my name like a prayer. The cottage suddenly felt smaller, the walls closer, as if I could feel the cage tightening around me. My phone rang. The hospital. I answered, expecting routine updates, but Dr. Chen's voice carried urgency. Miss Romano, your mother is asking for you. She's agitated, refusing treatment until she speaks with you in person. Can you come? Of course. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, only to find it blocked by a mountain of muscle in a black suit, one of Dante's guards. Sorry, Miss Romano. Mr. Castellano's orders. You stay inside until he returns. My mother needs me. She's at the hospital. I'll call for confirmation. He pulled out his phone, speaking in Italian too rapid for me to follow. When he hung up, his expression was apologetic but firm. Dr. Chen confirms your mother is stable, upset, but not in danger. Mr. Castellano says you can visit this afternoon when he returns. Rage flooded my veins. I don't need his permission to see my own mother. With respect, Miss Romano, you promised to stay inside. Mr. Castellano is protecting you. From what? What situation is so dangerous that I can't visit my dying mother? But even as I asked, dread settled in my stomach, because I knew men like Dante didn't panic without reason. I called him. The phone rang 4 times before he answered, and I could hear tension in his breathing, in the background noise of raised voices and movement. Isabella, I can't talk right now. My mother needs me. Your guard won't let me leave. A pause, heavy with conflict. I know. I'm sorry. But it's not safe right now. Give me 2 hours to handle this, and I'll take you to the hospital myself. What's happening, Dante? What situation? Someone tried to send a message to me, through people I care about. His voice dropped lower. They don't know about you yet, but they will soon. And until I eliminate the threat, you stay where I can protect you. The words chilled me. This is my life now? Locked in a cottage, needing permission to see my mother, waiting for you to eliminate threats? Yes. He didn't soften it, didn't apologize. This is what being with me means, Isabella. It means security guards and locked doors and me making decisions that seem controlling but keep you breathing. If you can't handle that, then what? You'll let me go? We both know that's a lie. No, it's not. I meant what I said last night. You're not a prisoner. But if you stay, if you choose this, then you accept my protection. All of it. Even the parts that make you feel caged. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to demand he let me out immediately, but beneath the rage was fear. Fear that he was right, that something dangerous lurked beyond these walls, that leaving meant risking more than my freedom. 2 hours, I said finally. Then you take me to my mother. No excuses. 2 hours, I promise. He kept his promise. Exactly 2 hours later, a convoy of 3 black SUVs arrived at the cottage. Dante emerged from the middle vehicle looking like he'd aged a decade. His suit rumpled, exhaustion carved into the lines around his mouth, a fresh bruise darkening his jaw. "What happened to you?" I asked as he helped me into the car. "Someone who disagreed with my business decisions. It's handled." He touched the bruise gingerly. "They won't be disagreeing anymore." The words should have horrified me. Instead, I found myself reaching out to touch his face, checking the damage. "You should ice that. I'll survive." But his hand covered mine, holding it against his cheek. "Your mother is fine, by the way. Dr. Chen says the agitation was a side effect of the medication. They've adjusted her dosage." Relief warred with anger. "You knew that and still made me wait?" "I made you wait because 3 rival family members were found dead in their cars this morning, all within a 5-mile radius of this estate. Someone's declaring war, Isabella, and I won't let you become collateral damage." The casual mention of death, of war, of violence as if it were weather to be discussed. It should have sent me running. But I'd known what he was when I let him into my bed. Known and chosen him anyway. "Tell me something," I said as the convoy pulled away. "If I asked you to leave this life, to walk away from the family business, from the danger, from all of it, would you?" He considered for a long moment. "No, because this life isn't something I can leave. It's who I am, what I've built, the legacy I'm trying to transform. Walking away wouldn't make me safer or better. It would just make me a target with no power to fight back. So I have to accept all of it, the violence, the danger, the locked doors. Yes, or you leave. Those are the only options, Isabella, and I won't lie and pretend otherwise." He pulled me closer, his arm around my shoulders heavy and possessive. "I can give you everything except normal. Everything except safe. Everything except simple." At the hospital, my mother took one look at me and knew. Mothers always knew. "You slept with him." Not a question. She stared at me with eyes too wise, too knowing. "The man paying for all this. You're involved with him." There was no point lying. "Yes. And he's dangerous. I can see it in your face, in the way you keep looking at the door like you expect trouble to walk through it." "Mama, do you love him?" she asked quietly. "Did I? Could you love someone after just days? Or was this obsession, possession, the desperate need to feel something other than grief and exhaustion?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I can't walk away from him because of the money? The treatment?" Her voice carried disappointment that cut deeper than any blade. "No, because when I'm with him I feel seen, not invisible, not just a tired girl cleaning rich people's houses. He looks at me like I matter, like I'm worth protecting and wanting," and my voice broke. "I know it's wrong. I know his family killed Papa. But I can't stop wanting him anyway." My mother was quiet for a long time, her thin fingers plucking at the hospital blanket. Finally, she spoke. "Your father's death broke something in me. But not because I loved him more than life. Because I loved him more than truth. I knew he'd seen something dangerous, known something that could get him killed. And when he died, I told myself it was an accident because the truth was too heavy to carry." She met my eyes. "But I always knew, Bella. Always. And it poisoned everything that came after." The confession stole my breath. "You knew?" I suspected, strongly. But I was too afraid to look deeper, to demand answers, to fight for justice. And that cowardice, it rotted inside me, maybe even made me sick. She reached for my hand. "Don't make my mistakes, baby. If you're going to be with this man, be with him honestly. Know what he is, what he's done, and choose him anyway with your eyes wide open. But don't lie to yourself. Don't make excuses. And don't ever let fear keep you from demanding the truth. Tears streamed down my face. What if the truth destroys us? Then you'll survive that too. You're stronger than you know, Bella. Stronger than I ever was. I stayed with her until she fell asleep, her words echoing in my mind. When I finally emerged, Dante was waiting in the hallway, and something in my expression made him straighten. What happened? We need to talk. Really talk. About everything. I moved past him toward the exit. Take me somewhere private. No guards in the room, no interruptions. Just you and me and the truth. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. The cottage. 20 minutes. The drive back was silent, tension thick enough to cut. Inside the cottage, he poured us both whiskey, neat, in crystal glasses that caught the afternoon light. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, and for the first time since we'd met, he looked uncertain. Ask. He said simply, whatever you need to know. Did you know who I was before the bathroom? Before you saw me changing? No. You were invisible, just like you said. Another maid in a house full of them. And when you found out about my father? When you made the connection? His jaw tightened. I had my people investigate, found out everything. His death, the restaurant fire, my uncle's paranoia. The pieces fit together too perfectly to be coincidence. So the money, the help, all of it, that's guilt? At first, maybe. But then I talked to you, saw you, and it became something else. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I've never believed in fate, Isabella. But meeting you felt inevitable. Like every choice I'd made, every path I'd taken, led to that bathroom door. That's not an answer. The answer is I don't know how to separate guilt from want anymore. I owe you a debt for what my family took. But I also desire you for who you are, strong and stubborn, and too proud to accept charity even when you're drowning. Both things are true. I sipped the whiskey, letting it burn down my throat. The men who died this morning. Did you kill them? No, but I gave the order. His eyes never left mine. They were planning to target my businesses, my people. So I eliminated the threat before it could spread. And if I'd been outside the cottage, if I'd gone to the hospital alone, they would have tried to take you, use you as leverage against me. His voice went cold, which is why they had to die. The casual brutality should have repulsed me. Instead, I found myself asking, how many people have you killed? Directly? 4? On my orders? More than I can count. He set down his glass. Does that change things between us? I don't know. Should it? Yes. Normal people don't ask that question. Normal people run screaming when they hear answers like mine. I'm not normal people anymore, am I? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Normal people don't sleep with the nephew of the man who killed their father. Normal people don't accept blood money to save their mother's life. It's not blood money. Yes, it is. That's exactly what it is, and I took it anyway because I wanted my mother to live more than I wanted to be righteous. I met his eyes. So tell me, Dante, what does that make me? Mine. The word was absolute, possessive. It makes you mine, if you'll have me. What does that mean, being yours? It means I protect you, provide for you, fight for you, kill for you if necessary. He moved closer, closing the distance between us. It means you accept who I am. All the darkness, all the violence, all the choices that would horrify decent people. And in return, I give you everything I have, everything I am. And if I can't accept it, if I wake up one day and realize I've become someone I don't recognize, then you leave. And I let you go, because keeping you prisoner would destroy the very thing I love about you. His hand cupped my face. But Isabella, I don't think you'll leave. I think you're tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending you don't have teeth. I think part of you has always been drawn to danger, to darkness, to the edge of things. You just never had permission to embrace it. He was right. God help me, he was right. I kissed him then. Not gentle, not sweet, but hungry and desperate and claiming. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me onto his lap, and we fell into each other like drowning people grasping for air. I'm choosing this, I whispered against his mouth. Choosing you. All of it. But if you ever lie to me, if you ever make me feel invisible again, I won't. I swear it. He kissed me between words. You're the most visible thing in my world now, Isabella. Everything else is just background noise. We made love on the couch as afternoon turned to evening, and this time there was no desperation, no fear, only certainty, only choice, only the recognition that we'd both found something rare and dangerous and worth fighting for. Later, wrapped in blankets and watching fire dance in the hearth, he told me about his plans, how he was systematically dismantling his uncle's criminal empire, replacing violence with legitimate business, how it would take years, maybe decades, how some enemies would never accept the change. And I told him about my dreams, college, literature, a life that was more than survival. He listened like every word mattered, like my hopes were as important as his empire. We'll make it work, he said finally. Your education, your mother's recovery, my transition out of the darkness, all of it, together. 3 months later, my mother entered remission. 6 months after that, I started online classes while working as Dante's actual assistant, learning the legitimate side of his businesses, discovering I had a talent for negotiation and organization. A year after that bathroom encounter, Dante proposed. Not with flowery speeches or public gestures, but quietly, in the cottage that had become our sanctuary. I'm still dangerous, he warned as he slid the ring onto my finger. Still have enemies, still make choices that might horrify you. I know. I kissed him, sealing the promise. And I'm still choosing you anyway. The wedding was small. My mother, still weak but smiling, a few of Dante's most trusted associates, and the priest who'd baptized his grandmother. We spoke our vows in the garden behind the cottage, surrounded by flowers that bloomed despite approaching winter. When he kissed me, I tasted future and past, violence and tenderness, everything we'd been and everything we'd become. His hand found mine, threading our fingers together with that same need for connection he'd shown from the beginning. Ready to be visible forever? He murmured against my lips. I smiled, pulling him closer. I've been visible since the moment you walked through that bathroom door. Everything after that was just catching up. We left the reception early, escaping to the cottage that held our history. Inside, the fire already burned, casting dancing shadows across walls that had witnessed our transformation from strangers to lovers to something that transcended easy definition. Do you regret it? He asked as we stood by the window, watching guards patrol the perimeter. Choosing this life? Every day, I admitted, then smiled at his stricken expression. And every day I choose it again anyway. Choose you. Because you're right. I was never meant for invisible. I was meant for this. For you. For a love that's messy and complicated and probably should never have worked. But does work. He turned me to face him, and in his eyes I saw everything. The violence and the tenderness, the darkness and the light, the monster and the man. Against all odds and better judgment. Against everything, I agreed, pulling him toward the bedroom. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Outside, the guards continued their patrol. The estate hummed with activity and danger, and the constant threat of violence. But inside the cottage, we created our own world, one where a maid could become a queen, where a monster could learn gentleness, where two broken people could forge something whole from the shattered pieces of their pasts. And when morning came, when reality returned with all its complications and consequences, we'd face it together. Visible. Chosen. Whole. Forever bound by a chance encounter and the courage to embrace the darkness between us, transforming it into something that looked surprisingly like light.